Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob, and today we're going to jump into some Ask Reddit. The question for today is, Overthinkers of Reddit, what unlikely scenario actually came true that you were completely prepared for because you are an overthinker? Let's jump right in. This answer from Unicorner: my boyfriend, who has zero history of seizures, narrowly escaped dying from one because my overthinking led me to break into his house when he didn't answer the phone. My overthinking had begun a few nights prior. He mentioned that he bit his tongue in his sleep and woke up with a bloody pillow and sore mouth, but he had no memory of it happening. That for some reason led my overthinking brain to question, wow, did he have a seizure and not realize it? He has zero history of seizures, and we had been together multiple years, didn't live together but spent nights together, and I had never seen a hint of a seizure, but for some reason this stuck in my mind. Fast forward 2 days, we usually don't hang out in the morning because he likes to sleep in late, but on this day we had an appointment to go see a specific dog at the shelter I was thinking of adopting. He wouldn't answer the phone that morning. I called multiple times before I went to his place, but he never picked up. I started getting a bad feeling, but quelled the "he's having a seizure" thought because that was clearly so unlikely, meanwhile making an action plan for that very scenario. I got to his house and he wouldn't answer, so in a completely not me crazy girlfriend move, I climbed over his fence. Luckily, his door was unlocked. I found him unconscious and unresponsive, lying on his back with the sticky remnants of foam all around his mouth. I jumped into action. I rolled him on his side to help curb aspiration, put a pillow under his shoulder to keep him in that position, and called the ambulance. Had I not hopped the fence to get in, had I not driven over when he didn't pick up the phone, had we not had plans to meet up hours earlier than we usually did, he would have been dead by lunch. His kidneys were already shutting down by the time he reached the emergency room. If he had never mentioned biting his tongue in his sleep, I don't think I would have been overthinking at all. No crazy worries about seizures would have pushed me to go over and find him. Turns out to be a weird brain disease that's bizarrely endemic to New Mexico, kind of. Cerebral cavernous malformations. Several days later, after we got home from the hospital, I got a call from a friend who said the dog, against all odds, was still at the shelter. As in, the very dog we were supposed to be seeing that day. I had given up hope on getting her, pushed it out of my priorities while he was hospitalized, but they had forgotten to take down my 24-hour hold sign on her cage, so no one inquired about her. She's now our miracle dog and is the sweetest animal I've ever owned. My boyfriend wouldn't be alive today if we hadn't made an appointment to meet her. Well, OP, I'm really glad to hear that your boyfriend's doing better, wishing you both nothing but the best. Also, in the comments, OP paid the dog tax, so here's Fable, the German Shepherd Chihuahua cross. Do me a quick favor, have a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're not actually subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. The next answer comes from TravelingElectrician. This was at 9 years old. We had driven home and seen the beginning wisps of smoke for the California cedar fire in 2003. Naturally, I assumed the worst and packed up all my clothes and spent about an hour making up a travel cage for my guinea pigs. I tied their water bottle to the side so they could drink, packed up their food and their favorite furniture just in case. I then spent the next few hours monitoring the fire on the news and out in the distance from our window, periodically asking my parents if we needed to evacuate. At some point in the night, the fire sped up like crazy and was literally on the hillside across the street. I went into my parents' room and said, "The fire is across the street, are you sure we shouldn't evacuate?" At this point, we all went crazy, grabbing important documents and supplies, and as we were about to lock the doors and drive, I realized I forgot my guinea pigs. My parents told me it was too late and I didn't have time to grab them. But when I cried and explained I had them packed up, I was able to grab them and go. The house ended up okay thanks to a neighbor putting out embers before they took, but we were gone long enough my pigs wouldn't have made it. OP, I can't even imagine that kind of situation. I'm so glad your family members were all okay, and really glad your house made it. Really kind of disappointed you didn't include a picture of them though. No guinea pig tax on this one. The next answer comes from Duck1914. In college, on occasion, upperclassmen would randomly steal the underclassmen towels from the shower stalls and then lock their room doors, so they had to go to their RA bare-butted. I had the idea to stash a towel in the drop ceiling tiles for just that event. Maybe a week later, I became the victim of a towel snatching. However, the upperclassmen were very unhappy to see me strut out with a nice clean towel from my ceiling stash. You know, you could have used this as a power move. Just strut your stuff down the hallway, letting everything hang out all the way down to the RA, and make sure you make eye contact with as many people as possible on the way there. This next answer comes to us from Ronark. I always keep an unopened deck of cards in my backpack. You never can tell when some hold'em may be needed to pass the time. But when I was at a business conference, the bigwig who was presenting to us was having to wing it with a few things because his luggage had been lost, and he didn't have all of his materials. He had the PowerPoint deck, but he didn't have his props. He started going into explaining how he'd be able to demonstrate this statistical principle he was describing, only he didn't have the unopened deck of cards he needed. Voila, I was able to produce a shrink-wrapped deck of cards. My boss was also in the same presentation, and he was also impressed that I just happened to have a deck of cards on me, so that's nice too. If you're carrying around an unopened deck of cards, I guess that means you're not playing Hold'em as much as you might think, huh? The next answer comes from Random Key Strike. I'm an amateur clarinetist. I've played in the local orchestra and the like. My son was in the high school band, also played clarinet. Prior to a football game at the warm-up area, he called me as I was about to head to the game, saying that someone in his section had a problem with their instrument, so did I have a loaner? Now, the thing about being a clarinet player is that everyone you know calls you every time they see a cheap plastic clarinet for sale at a garage sale or the like. So over the years, especially when my son was in junior and senior high, when I saw one of these for $50 or $100, I grabbed it. Didn't happen every day, but at the peak of my collection, I had a couple of beater plastic clarinets in addition to the pretty good wooden one my son played. And Lord knows I wouldn't trust anyone with my good clarinets I used in the orchestra. So I grabbed both of these plastic jobs, which actually played okay, and brought them. I pulled the one I thought was the better of the two out of the car and gave it to my son's friend. Meanwhile, he says, hey, another person ran into a problem, and I got the second clarinet out of the car. How many clarinets do you have? Was my son's question. It was a proud moment. OP, I have this problem too. I collect so many things for my different hobbies, and then they just sit around doing nothing. Let's not talk about that. The next answer comes from Wish You a Merry. I didn't actually plan for this, it just worked out. But one day for some reason, I put a suction cup in my pocket. I can't exactly remember why. It was from a shower hook that I think I broke, and I put it in my pocket hoping to find a replacement or something. Later that day, I was standing around with a few friends, and one friend was lamenting that his bumper was dented. He showed us and said, I bet I could pop it right out if I had like a suction cup or something. I wordlessly pulled the suction cup out of my pocket and handed it to him. Everyone definitely thought I was creepy as hell. Someone in the comments below this one asked OP if it actually worked, and he said no, not even a little. The next answer is from Alistair Westdrop. When I was 11, I always kept approximately 12 to 15 of some combination of pens, pencils, and markers in my pant pocket. Just like having options and never knew what I was going to need to write on, sometimes got some side-eye from other kids though. Cut 2, at a weekend camp with a bunch of kids. I'm participating in a sort of scavenger hunt race thing. At one point, our team hits this task where everyone has to draw or write something. Don't really remember, but there's only 2 pens, about 10 people per team, and another team just showed up. With 1 pen assigned to each team, it's going slow. Until you get a pen, you get a pen, everybody gets a pen. Our team screams through the task because we can all write simultaneously, while the other team's left plodding along with their 1 pen. We eventually win. Who's weird now? Yeah, you OP, you're still weird. On another note, I used to walk around with a pencil on the inside pocket of my jacket until one day when I bent over to pick up something from the ground and that pencil impaled me in my left chest. Haven't carried one in that location since. Our next answer comes from L Bird. I was once driving on the highway behind a car with a couple of kayaks strapped to the roof. My anxious brain kept saying, what if they fall off the car Final Destination style? I tried to convince myself that it was an irrational fear, but the anxiety got the better of me and I decided to change lanes and make some distance. About 30 seconds later, cue kayaks, they both slip off the roof and go rolling around the highway. Luckily, no one was hurt, but man, that did not help my anxiety at all. Definitely know that feeling when driving down the highway. I'm the kind of person that if I have to pass a big truck, I will hammer down the accelerator to get past it as fast as I can. I don't know what it is, but I just don't like being anywhere near them. The next answer is from Emma9321. I work in childcare and was working at a center that was so draining. I started applying for new jobs and went on a couple interviews. One time, I had an interview with another daycare and was offered the position. I loved my coworkers and ultimately decided to turn the new position down. However, I had this gut feeling that I couldn't burn any bridges in case crap at my current job hit the fan. So when I turned down the new job, I made up an excuse saying I'd love to take the offer, but couldn't because of XYZ reason, but would be in touch sometime in the future. Lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, crap hit the fan at my work. I took a month off and then emailed the job that offered me a position and started 2 weeks later. Wow, OP, you're lucky on this one that they hadn't hired somebody already. Congrats on the new job. Okay, the last one comes from Rytur, and this one can't be topped, so it had to be last. When my wife and I were getting married and looking for a place for ceremony, we found this beautiful but quite remote garden. We were signing the contract for the event, and I kept thinking that it was quite remote. So I asked, how much time does it take for the ambulance to get here? I became the laughing stock of both families. My then future mother-in-law, who was present at the meeting, literally fell down from the chair laughing. The wedding organizer remembered it for weeks, telling about it to everyone she met. My dad ended every sentence with, "But maybe you need an ambulance for that." My wife was making siren noises when I was saying something we disagreed on. Every family dinner, all the aunts and uncles were checking if the ambulance was present. You name it, the entire package. Still, I couldn't get rid of this weird feeling. It would have taken over an hour for the ambulance to get to the garden. After a few weeks, I ended up paying a private ambulance to be present at the wedding. Fast forward to the ceremony, as my wife literally walks down the aisle, at the back of the garden, I see 2 paramedics running with the stretcher, and my dad squeezing my hand whispering, "That's none of your goddamn business, let them take care of it." What happened was that one of our older guests had a heart attack and almost died at the ceremony, was saved by the private ambulance. Ever since then, when my wife tells me that I'm overthinking, I just do the siren noise. OP, I only wish I had that level of "I told you so" that I could milk for eternity with my wife. Good for you. Check out the original Ask Reddit post linked in the description down below. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Goodbye.